So our newest brute is one tough nut to crack, but one of his builds promises to be both the figurative and literal lowest intelligence deck that CC has ever seen. Block for 9, swing for 7 seems decent enough until, of course, you're stranded with one card in your hand or no cards in deck. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking the big, dumb, lovable brute, TUFFNUT, and more specifically, kind of some play patterns around, I mean, let's be honest, everyone's super excited about being able to swing rock, right? We've had rock for just shy of what? It was Risk before World San Jose. So yeah, just shy of 3 years. We've had rock. Rock has not been swung a lot of times in the grand scheme of things, but now there's a path to do so. And there's a lot of folks really excited about. So what specifically are we talking about the block 9, swing 7? Well, to be fair, the deck kind of builds itself, and that's kind of why I made the joke. It's like the lowest intelligence deck. You see how I can make puns? Because he only has 3 intelligence, and it also just requires you to block and then swing for free. The general idea being you have like 54, 57, maybe 60 blues in your deck, and they all block good, and you just throw them as blocks, and then you do his ability, which is instant, pitch the top card of your deck. If it has 6 or more, the crowd cheers you, but who cares if you miss, because then you have 3 resources, and you can swing rock, right? So it's very clear he was designed for this to be a thing. However, let's actually chat about the whole thing, because there's a lot of risks involved with this stupid, simple playstyle. Mostly being that rock says once per turn action, 3 for swing, we got that down, but activate it only if you have no cards in hand. So if you have a card in hand, you can't do this. So there's a couple, like, let's think about the wizard play, for example, right? In theory, you're like, oh, well, I'll just pitch 9 when they attack me. Well, you're only sitting at AB3, maybe AB4, depending on, like, you know, how you're running your equipment. Where are you going to pitch to, right? So what the wizards could do, for example, is like just hit you for like an amped 4 coming for 5. Maybe you're blocking 1. They just kind of chip away. They're able to set up their combo because, again, you're limited by that. Plus, you're not able to ever get to the point in this case where you're swinging rock. Now you're like, okay, well, Andrew, I just won't run rock against wizards. Seems like a solid plan. I'll run club, something like else. Also seems like a solid plan. But as this deck, let's say that this deck does find its way. I don't think it will find its way into like the competitive circuit, right? But let's say it does. People are just going to learn. Like if you show up with your armory, people are just going to learn to not attack you enough that you can clear your hand. And like, what are you going to do? They come in for like, let's say a rabble for 4 and you dump 9 on it knowing they have go again. You're not going to do that. But then they could do that. You could bleed 1. They arsenal a card. They're setting up for their big play. Now you're stuck with a card in hand that you can't do anything with, right? If you're running, again, this all blue play. So I think you start to see the risks in that, of course. And then if we actually start thinking about this from just a pure kind of like math modeling standpoint, what I have up right now is this is very rough modeling, and yes, it's only starting with 60 cards. You could do more, blah, 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 right? But you actually put yourself at pretty big risk of fatigue under this like pure blue, let's call it pure blue rock math. If you sit down with 60 cards, for example, you'd get roughly 140 damage presented by the time you went through. Now, there's a little bit of like overlap in terms of what I'm calling the passes, which is, you know, going through your pitch stack. So maybe there's a little bit of flexibility on this depending on how things play out. But by and large, you're only going to present damage enough to them, also accounting for their life pool, to chew up about, let's say, 75%-ish of their deck. And it's probably actually a little less than that. Now, keep in mind, they're doing stuff to attack you as well. But if they do sit down and want to go like full fatigue with you, you will lose on this, right? So you're actually counting on them attacking you and attacking you fully so that you don't have cards in your hand because you're banking on getting those cards out of your hand again to be able to swing rock, right? So you see where I'm going here is that the math on this isn't super great in your favor once folks start to figure out how this works. And again, it's not exactly the most complicated deck in the world. Like, folks are going to figure out how to do this and how to not have to dump their whole hand to attack you, right? And again, you're coming in for 7. They can block 2 3s, bleed 1. Well, they can do that 39 times, right? Well, they can't with us. That's not, they can't with cards in deck, but you get my point, right? They're coming at you as well. And they're going to, I believe that in most cases, not every case, but in most cases, I believe you're going to run out of cards before they do. So I'm not trying to, and to be clear, I'm not trying to take the wind out of the sails. We want to play this, go have fun with it. Just understand there's some risk in it. So what I want to do to that point, because I think it's super fun, let's actually talk about some of my proposals for how to change this a little bit or maybe one up the game. And the first and easiest part of that is using goes again goes and pumps, right? Use go again cards or pump cards, stuff like lead with power, right? So lead with power costs 1, and it's intentional that it costs 1 so that it gives you something to pitch to. That's the idea here, right? Yes, I do realize that barraging beat down on here is, I mean, it's the only one that doesn't have a cost, but you know, you could arsel it and anyway, you get it, right? The idea here is to be able to get cards out of our hand without having to block. So I know that you need to have an outlet there, because again, if what they're going to do is be like, okay, we will not present full damage so that they have to either really inefficiently block and aggressively fatigue themselves, or I strand them to where they can't present damage at me. You need to have ways around that. So like lead with power, Bonebreaker Bellow, Zealous Belting, stuff like that is exactly what you need to do. It's not just like throwing in D-reacts and stuff like that, right? You're going to have to be able to have play cards so that you can do something on your turn to get those cards out of your hand, right? That's the idea here. That's what I'm trying to present. Now, let me go. I know this isn't rock, but let me flip the switch or flip the script here a little bit in terms of where I actually think TUFFNUT actually has quite a bit of potential. And that's more so in running like a more red and yellow type deck with Club. Because if you look at, like, Club is an amazing, amazing weapon. And I want to completely acknowledge that you're, in very rare cases, going to be able to get the if you discard a card with 6 or more type of thing, right? You're not necessarily clubbing for 5 here. But Club being able to come in for 4 for 2, that's better than any Guardian weapon, right? And the neat thing about this being 2 with a lot of reds and yellows in your deck is that you could say, so let's say you go lead with might, which is a 1 for 3 front pump. You pitch a yellow to that, then it doesn't matter what color TUFFNUT pitches off the top of the deck. You're always safe. Maybe you've got one floating if you pitch a yellow, oh no, but you're guaranteed, right? So you can set yourself up into these safe plays. And then again, you always have something, you can always pitch to Club to swing. You're not limited on no cards in hand. And this is a lot more, I think that this will be a lot more, I think this will be a lot more successful in like the grindy type build that we're looking for, that I think a lot of people are looking for in the rock build, right? Now, you also do see kind of in the back there, he's got a lot of yellows. So I do think that there's some intent here. And again, maybe he gets to be clear, he may get his own weapon. I personally think he was designed for rock to be, I mean, again, there's no weapons in this set. Well, there's no weapons in the main part of the set. They very well could have them in expansion slots, but there's no weapons in limited. They just talked about fists only, right? So we know he won't have like a token weapon. He could have another weapon of sorts, but you have a number of options out there. But I think right now, Romping Club's the best. There's nothing that stops him from doing Claws and Bonebreaker and Blood Rush. Nothing stops him from doing that. But I think being able to just, in a pinch, pitch and try and swing Club, or set it up to Club for 7, as it may be, or whatever, I think that's going to be a lot more successful. And then again, being able to like maybe get a free pummel out of it or something, like that seems pretty darn good to me. And then again, you have the chance to start doing his thing with the cheering, and I just like it. I like it a lot. So that's what I think's probably where TUFFNUT kind of, because I mean, think about it. How many good like 6-drop, or no, I shouldn't say 6-drop. How many good 6-attack yellow brute cards are there? There's like probably more than we can fit in our decks, right? So I think kind of going, instead of going like full blue with maybe a couple red D-reacts and swinging rock, maybe I think the better build for him is probably going to lie in this like yellow club build. That's what I'm thinking. So I would be very interested to hear what all my TUFFNUT fans out there are thinking. This guy, like, first off, huge shout out for the design to actually get rock. Whether it's just a head nod, again, whether it's competitive or not, definite head nod to rock. Like, that was clearly what this was meant for. I think it's awesome. I think it's phenomenal. But that doesn't mean that's the only way that has to play him. And I do think that club is probably the way to go. But I would love to hear what my Brute fans think about this. So let me know in the comments below. What do you think? What's your deck build look like? I'm just starting to play around with that. No build yet. But it seems like it has quite a bit of potential. And again, the fact that his spec, right, like it's not his spec, I guess, but it's his charm. The fact that his charm is yellow, I think gives us some hints as well. So anyway, let me know what you're thinking. Thanks for joining me, my friends. And go Commando.